Hello everyone, this is Sheila back with a tutorial. This is a tutorial I've already done, but I hadn't made the pattern when I first done this tutorial, and I have altered one or two things on the pattern, so I am going to do this tutorial over again. It's the only pattern I've done in this size. It was an 18-inch, and as I want the pattern and the tutorial to match, because I have had one or two comments and emails because people thought they had done something wrong because the pattern wasn't the pattern that they bought wasn't the same as the tutorial. So I'm going to do this tutorial over again, and then I will delete the other one. But for anyone who doesn't know, this is the pattern I am using, and if anyone wants to buy this pattern that doesn't know that I do sell these patterns, this pattern's on eBay for £2.50, and it's also on Etsy, but it's also as a PDF on Etsy, which I sell for £1. Plus, anyone will have to pay the taxes in their country. In the UK, it'll be in 20 pence added onto that pound for VAT, and it's other amounts in different countries. I'm not sure, but the PDF is on Etsy for anyone that wants to buy it and print it out themselves. So I am going to start with the back on this pattern, and so I'm going to blow this up. Now I've started casting on the stitches. I'm using 3.25mm for the ribs. Now you can see there's 3.25 there for the ribs, and then I'll be using 4mm. Turn that around. It's very hard to see the writing on this one. Yeah, 4mm for the body part anyway, but I don't need them just now. So I'm casting on 58 stitches for the back. I have cast on 50 stitches up to now, and I am doing the cable cast on. For anyone that doesn't know how to do the cable cast on, I have 8 more stitches to cast on, so I will show you. So instead of going through the front of the stitch like that, or even through the back of the stitch, I go behind the stitch, the whole stitch like that. So I have 50, that's 51, 52. And when you put your needle through like that, pull that stitch tight to tighten the stitch up. That's how you do the cable cast on. 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58. I'm going to count up those stitches just in case I miscounted. That's 58 stitches. And now we're going to do knit 2, purl 2, rib. So when I do the first row, I knit into the back just the knit stitches. So I'm going to knit 2, and then purl 2. Purl as normal. You only knit into the back of the knit stitches, and this is just on the first row. Just makes that cast on edge a little bit neater. So I will meet you when I get to the end of this row. So that is my first row after the cast on row, and now I'm going to knit another 7 rows, so there will be 8 rows altogether of the rib, and you're just going to knit normal. You're going to knit the front of the purl stitch and the front of the knit stitch, no knitting into the back. That was just the first row to tighten up and neaten the edge of the knitting. So I will carry on doing these 8 rows of knitting the 2x2 rib, and I will be back then. So that is my 8 rows, and how I showed you how I cast on the edge, it shows you how it comes out a nice neat edge. There's no loopy stitches anywhere, and that's how I like the edge of the rib to be. And now I'm going to change to the 4mm needles, and the wool I am using, this is the label. If anyone can find this wool anywhere, it's a very hard wool to come by. It's called Majestic, and this is double knitting. And they have other thicknesses. They have Aran and Chunky. But it is very hard to come by. It usually comes in job lots, and it is very cheap. And it's a very good wool if you can find it anywhere. So that's that one. So the first row of the pattern is all knit. So you actually start to do the stitches for the pattern from the wrong side. So your first row is just knit all the way across. Which is all I'm going to do. So I will meet you at the end of that row. So that is my first row, knit all the way across, and the next row is where you start the pattern. And with this size, I'm just checking the pattern. The second size is 18 inch. So I'm going to knit 3 stitches. One, 2, 3. That is going to be garter stitch. So we're going to be, those 3 stitches will be knit on both sides of the rows. So the next 8 stitches are purl 4 and knit 4. That's purl 4 and knit 4. So those stitches, the knit stitches on this row, are going to be the garter stitches, and the 4 purl stitches are going to be the stocking stitch, where we're going to cross cables. And for that, for cables, you will need a cable needle. This is my trusty old cable needle, which I prefer. There's a lot of different kinds, but this is the kind I prefer. So I'll carry on across that row and meet you at the end of that row. And we have come to the end of the row, and after I've repeated those knit 4 and purl 4, or you started off with purl 4, we've ended up with knit 4, with purl 4, sorry. So the last 3 stitches you're going to knit. And I always knit into the back of the last stitch on every row that ends with knit. Now the next row is a row we're going to need the cable needle for. So we're going to do the first 3 stitches on knit, the same as we did on the last row, because this is garter stitch. 2, 3, and this is where our cable needle comes in. So we're going to cross cable 4 front, that is putting 2 stitches onto the cable needle like that, holding it at the front of your work, and then knitting the next 2 stitches. You have to make sure your stitches don't fall off that cable needle. And then knit the 2 stitches off the cable needle. So that is 1 cable crossed, and the next 4 stitches are knit stitches, which is the garter stitch again. So we're going to knit those 4, and then cross 4 cross cable 4 front. That's what it is called. It's because you say cable 4 is because you're 4 stitches to the cable and you're crossing 2 over 2 from the front of the work. And then you're knitting the next 2 stitches and then knitting the stitches off the cable needle. And then we're going to knit the next 4 garter stitches. So I have crossed the cables up to the last 3 stitches, and I'm going to knit those 3 stitches. And the next row is just knitting the first 3 stitches. Is exactly what you did on the second row. Purling the stitches where you cross the cables. Knitting the garter stitch. And the next row to the pattern is row 4, which is the same as row 1. You knit across all the stitches. So that's what I'm going to do. So that is the 4 rows to the pattern, and you're going to repeat those 4 rows until your work measures 6 inches, and you will be crossing cables from that last row that we crossed them over. You're going to cross them over on every 8th row. So that is until you reach 6 inches, and you will end on a wrong side row. And for anyone who has trouble keeping track of the number of rows, because you're going to cross cables on every 8th row, you just count your stitches. So with the stitches, that stitch down there, you don't count that one. That is the row where you crossed the cables the last time, so you count after that one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've done 7 rows, so the next row I'm going to cross the cables. That's how you count up how many rows between the cables. So I am back. I've knit the cardigan up to 6 inches and I've finished on a wrong side row. So we're going to turn over to the right side and I'm going to show you how to decrease. And I'll blow that up so you can see better. And as this is early in the morning, the light has changed completely. This is the same pale blue that I was knitting. It looks a much deeper blue. It's because of the light. But anyway, I will show you how to do the decrease. So first off, we're going to cast off 3 stitches on this side, knit across, and then cast off 3 stitches on the other side. But as this is a cable row, if you don't want to do start your decreasing where the cable is, do that row, knit that row and the next row, and then start on a row after you've done this. But I'll show you what I do when there's a cable crossed here, a cable 2 cross. So I'm going to cast off the first 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Now for the cable, as I only have 3 stitches, I'm going to cross 1 stitch over 2. So I'm going to take the first stitch and put it onto the cable needle, hold it at the front of the work, knit the next 2 stitches, and then knit that 1 stitch off the cable needle. So that is still keeping that cable cross, but just over 3 stitches instead of 4. And then we're going to knit 4 stitches and then cross over the next 4 stitches, and then just keep on with the pattern until you get to the end of the row. So we are now at near the end of the row, and we have 4 stitches for the cable here, and as you are knitting all the way across here, you just cross your stitches as normal. 2 at the front, and knit the next 2, and then knit the 2 off the cable needle. And then knit your last 3 stitches. And now we're going to cast off 3 stitches at the start of this row. So you're going to knit the 3 stitches knitwise that you're casting off, and 1 stitch purlwise. And then you're just going to follow the pattern across the row. So that is the 2 decreasing rows, the 2 cast off stitches, not decreasing, same as decreasing anyway. And now we're going to knit another 2 rows before we start decreasing. So the first row is just knit all the way across. Now for the second row, this is what you do on every wrong side row. The first stitch you knit, the second stitch you purl, and then do whatever stitches you need to do to follow the pattern across the row, which with this one is going to be purl 2 and then knit 4, then purl 4, and you'll do that until you come to the last 2 stitches. We're now at the last 4 stitches, so we're going to purl 2, and the next stitch is a purl stitch, and the last stitch is a knit stitch. And you do that on every wrong side row. At the start you will knit 1 and purl 1, and no matter what the stitch is, if that's a knit stitch, you still purl it. And the same with the other end. The last 2 stitches you purl 1 and knit 1, and that gives you a small garter edge to the edge of the raglan. And the next row is a decreasing row. So you're going to knit 1, slip 1 stitch, you knit 1 stitch, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, and pass that slipped stitch over the knit stitch. And that's just how you do the decreasing, and then knit all the way across to the last 3 stitches. Because every right side row where you're not crossing cables is just knit all the way across. So we're at the last 3 stitches, and we're going to knit 2 together and knit that last stitch. And we're going to do that decreasing on every alternate row now. So the next row will be like the other wrong side row I showed you, where you knit 1, purl 1, there will be 1 more stitch to purl, and then follow the pattern, knit 4 and purl 4 until you get to the last 2 stitches. And we're now at the last 2 stitches, so we're going to purl 1 and knit 1. And that is how the decreasing is. We are going to knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, and then pass that slip stitch over the knit stitch, and then going to knit to the end and knit 2 together and knit 1. And then on the wrong side you're going to purl 1, no, sorry, not purl, on the right side you're going to knit 1, purl 1, follow the pattern, the different stitches for the pattern across to the last 2 stitches, and you will purl 1 and knit 1, and those are the 2 rows you're doing, and you'll carry on decreasing like that until you have 18 stitches left, and then you will put those stitches onto a stitch holder, but I will show you when I get that far. And I will show you the next row when I come to do the next cable where you cross over the cables. If you have 3 stitches left where you cross over the cables, it won't be this time, it'll probably be further in. If you only have 3 stitches on this side, you will put 1 stitch on a stitch holder, knit the next 2, and then pass that 1 stitch from the stitch holder, knit that 1 stitch. And the same with the other side, but instead of putting 1 stitch, if you have the 3 stitches where the cable is, instead of putting 1 stitch on, you put 2 stitches on the holder and knit the 1 stitch that's left. But if I come to that row, I will show you it when I come to that row. So this is the row where you can still, where your decreasing is going to go into the cable stitches, but you can still cross the cables over if there's enough stitches left of the cable. So I'm going to show you what I do. So going to knit the first stitch, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, and pass that slip stitch over. And as you can see, there's only 3 stitches left for to cross over the cable, which you're doing it on 4 stitches. So we're going to take the first stitch onto the cable needle, just the 1 stitch, and then we're going to knit the next 2 stitches. And then knit the stitch, that single stitch from the cable needle. And then just work across the row to your last cable crossover. And now we are at the 4 stitches to cross over, but we only have 2 stitches left where we want 3 for the pattern. So we're going to take that 1 stitch there, but instead of taking 1 stitch off the onto the cable needle, we're going to take 2. So going in the opposite direction to the other side. So we're taking 2, and we're going to just knit that next 1 cable, that 1 stitch, and then knit the 2 off the cable needle. And then decrease as normal. and knit your 2 stitches together and knit 1. And that's how you cross over cables, to keep your cables as close as possible to the original. So some people might just knit over those 3 stitches, which gives you an elongated cable as it goes further up. But that's how I do them when you haven't got the full amount of stitches that you cross over for the cables. So I'm going to carry on knitting until I have 18 stitches left, as I said before, and I'll be putting those on a stitch holder, but I'll show you that when I get to it. So that is the back finished. I have 18 stitches left on the needle, and I've left a long end here for sewing the raglan, the same as I do when I start. I always leave a long end for to sew up the side, and the long end for to sew down the raglans, to save you adding little bits of yarn for afterwards. And I'm going to put those stitches onto a stitch holder. Now when I knit the last row, you normally do the knit row and then knit the purl row, the purl side or the wrong side. I don't knit the wrong side, I only knit the last row where I decrease the stitches, because when you pick the stitches up for the neckband, you're knitting across that row anyway. So I always finish off on the row where I do the decreasing. So we're just going to pick these stitches up now and put them onto the stitch holder. And that is the back finished, and the next part I will be doing will be the left front. So this is the left front of the cardigan, and I have cast on 28 stitches, and I've used 3.25mm needles. It's very hard to see the size on these needles on here. The 3.25mm needles anyway. And I cast on 28 stitches, and I knit 2 by 2, knit 2, purl 2, rib for 8 rows. That's what I've done on here. And I'm changing to 4mm needles now. And the first row is knit all the way across the row. So I'm going to knit all the stitches just across this row. So that's the first row of the pattern, where it's just knit. My needle down, get my other 4mm needle. And now we're going to start with the pattern, and you start the actual change of stitches on the wrong side. The pattern starts with that knit 1 row, but the actual change of the stitches, the knit 4 and the purl 4, is on the wrong side. And you can see here, this is the left front here. This is my own pattern. This is the size I'm doing here, the one with the little bonnet on. And so you can see the left front with 325 needles and 28 stitches, and knit 2 by 2 rib, where it tells you on the back how many rows to do. 8 there. And so the row 2 of the pattern, we're going to start with knit 4, and then it's purl 4, knit 4, and repeat the stitches in brackets till you get to the last 4 stitches. It's sort of gone pretty dark here today and it's not even late. So I'm going to knit 4. And then I'm going to purl 4. And knit 4. Those are the stitches in the brackets. And we're going to repeat those stitches all the way across the row. Let's purl 4. And knit 4. Purl 4. And the last 4 stitches are knit. And the next row, where you're going to knit the knit stitches, because this is the garter part there and the stocking stitch part, they are for cable. You'll be doing the cable over those stitches. Well, I need my cable needle. So we're going to knit the first 4 stitches. Then you're going to take a cable needle and take the first 2 stitches onto the cable needle and hold at the front of the work. Knit the next 2 stitches and then knit the 2 stitches off the cable needle. And then you're going to knit the next 4 stitches. And cable again. And then knit the 2 off the cable needle. And you're going to carry on doing that to the end of the row. So that's the row where you cross the cables. And after that row, you'll cross the cables on every 8th row. It's not on every 4th row of on every row in the 4 rows of the pattern. It's on every 8th row. So the next row is just knit the first 4 stitches. And purl the stitches where you cross the cables over. And you'll carry on doing those 4 rows until your work measures 6 inches, and I will be back then. Our work now measures 6 inches, so we're now going to cast off. We're going to cast off the stitches for the armholes, and we'll be crossing cables at the same time. So we're going to cast off 3 stitches at the beginning of this row. Two, that's 3. And as we now have to cross cables on the next 4 stitches, So I'm going to take the first 2 stitches onto the cable needle, hold them at the front, and then knit the next 2 stitches, and then knit the 2 stitches off the cable needle. And then we're going to knit the next 4 stitches, and then we're going to cross the cables again. And then cross the cable stitches off the cable needle. Knit the stitches off the cable needle. And then we're going to knit to the end of this row. In the next row we're going to knit across to the last 2 stitches, and those last 2 stitches we're going to purl 1 and knit 1. So we're following the pattern across the row, the knit 4, purl 4, and we're going to purl the second last stitch and knit the very last stitch, and then we are going to knit 2 more rows without any shaping. So it'll be knit all the way across. On row 1. On the second row, we are knitting and purling across the row to the last 2 stitches. So our last 2 stitches, we're going to purl 1 stitch and knit 1 stitch. And the next row and every alternate row after that we are going to decrease. So we're going to knit 1, slip 1 stitch, knit 1 stitch, that's that slip stitch over, and that is just a knit row all the way across. So that is how the decreasing is going. On every alternate row now, on the right side row, you're going to knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slip stitch over and pattern to the end. And then on the other side, you are going to pattern to the last 2 stitches and you're going to purl 1, knit 1. And you'll do that until you have 13 stitches left. And then you'll be shaping the neck, and I will be back then. So we have knit until there are 13 stitches left, and you've ended on the right side row. So you're going to turn over and you're going to cast off the stitches at the start for the neck shaping, that is, and we're going to cast off 4 stitches at the start of this row. So you're actually casting off on the wrong side. 2, 3, 4, and then carry on across the row. And then you're going to carry on decreasing at the armhole edge, and at the same time we are going to decrease at the neck edge on the next 4 rows, and then decrease at armhole edge only until 2 stitches remain. So we're going to decrease 4 times here, so it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. We're also decreasing at the armhole edge at the same time. So that's 1 at the neck edge. Two at the neck edge. This will be 3 at this neck edge, this row. And the last one at the neck edge, 4th row. Decrease at the armhole edge. You have 1 more row to purl that row. Or you're going to purl 1 stitch and knit the last stitch. And then the next row, you're going to knit 2 stitches together. And we're going to cut that yarn off, leave a long end to sew or sewing the seam. And that is the left front. And now we're going to do the right front, and the right front will be exactly the same as the left front. So you're going to cast on however number, I have to check the pattern here because 28. You're going to cast on 28 stitches, knit exactly the same as what you do. You just need to follow the part of the pattern that I showed you for the left front. Just knit the 8 rows and then do the pattern up to the armholes, and then I will come back then when I get that far and show you how to do that. Hello, I am back with another bit of this tutorial. I have done that's the left front, and I'm now onto the right front. And as you can see on the left front, I started the decreasing the cast off stitches on the right side, but as this is the opposite side, I've knit across to the end, and I'm going to cast off the stitches on the opposite side so that they match for the back. So I'm going to cast off 3 stitches on this row. That's 1, 2, 3, and then carry on with the pattern to the end of the row. So that is the 3 stitches cast off and to match the other side. And when we cast the stitches off this side, we knit 3 more rows before I started the decreasing. But because we've already knit 1 row across to cast those stitches off, and then we've knit that row, we only need to knit 2 more rows for this. Just come to the side for the decreasing. So I'm going to knit 2 more rows, and then I'll show the decrease. And on this first row, when we come to the last 2 stitches, we're going to knit those 2 stitches. No matter what stitches you show, you never have got a stitch or anything, you knit those last 2 stitches on the needle. And then on the next row, this will be on every wrong side row. You knit the first stitch, purl the second stitch, and then do whatever stitches which are purl here. You do whatever stitches comes up next. And now we're on to the decreasing row. So I'm going to knit to the last 3 stitches, and then I'm going to knit 2 together and knit 1. And now I'll meet you when I get to the last 3 stitches. So we have the last 3 stitches, and we're going to knit 2 together and knit 1. And like I said before, on the wrong side row, we're going to knit the first stitch, purl the second stitch, and then do whatever stitches comes up on the row. So that is how the decreasing is going, and we're going to decrease on every other row now until we have 13 stitches left, and I'll be back then. And now I have 13 stitches left, and I have ended up on the right side row, but I need to be on that right side row to cast off the stitches, so I'm going to knit across the wrong side row. So to do the neck shaping on the right side, you finish on the wrong side row, because you're going to cast off the stitches on the for the front here, so they match that side there. So we're going to cast off 4 stitches. That's 3, that's 4. Knit across to the last 3 stitches. And now we're going to decrease at the neck edge on next 4 rows. We're going to decrease at the neck edge on the next four rows, and decreasing as usual at the armhole edge. So we've knit to the last 2 stitches, and we're just going to purl those 2 stitches together. The next row, we're going to knit those 2 stitches together, knit into the back of the loops. and then knit across to your last 3 stitches. You're going to knit 2 together, knit 1, in the next row knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, knit 2 together. That's your third one on the neck edge, and your fourth one you're going to knit 2 together, now I've just realised there's not been enough stitches left there, so for the 4th decrease on there and for the decrease on here, we're going to slip the first stitch, knit the next 2 stitches together, and then pass that slip stitch over those ones there. And then we're going to purl 1 more row. Now we're going to purl and knit. And the next row is just knitting 2 stitches together, and that's the end of the shaping for the right front. And you just need to cut a length off to leave for sewing the seam. And there you have 2 fronts, left front and the left and the right front finished. So we just need to do a sleeve now. And now we're on to the sleeve, and I have cast on 32 stitches and knit 2, purl 2, rib. And now I'm going to change, that was on 325mm needles, and I'm changing to 4mm needles, and the first row of the pattern is all knit. So I'm going to knit across this row. So that's that row knitted, and the next row is, you start off with knit 2, then purl 4, knit 4, and purl 4. So your purl 4 and knit 4 to the last 2 stitches. Now last 2 stitches we're going to knit. And for the next row you will want a cable needle. So the next row we are going to knit 2 stitches, and with the cable needle we're going to put the first 2 stitches onto the cable needle, hold that at the front of the work, and then knit the next 2 stitches, and then knit the 2 stitches off the cable needle. And then knit your next 4 stitches, and then again put the next 2 stitches onto the cable needle, hold at the front of the work, and knit the next 2 stitches. So that's the cable row, and the next row is the same as what you've just knitted, the row 2. So you're going to knit the first 2 stitches, purl the next 4 stitches. They were the stitches that you cabled, and knit the next 4. They are your garter stitches. So those are your 4 pattern rows. 1 row knit, then on the wrong side it's purl 4, knit 4, and then the next row is cable, and then the next row is the same as row 2, but the cable rows are only done on every 8th row. The row where you don't cables, you just knit all the way across. And now we are going to increase on this row, on the 5th row, and then on every, I'll check my pattern, every 6th row. We're going to increase on this row, the 5th row, and then it's every 6th row after that until you have, I'm having to check my pattern because it's a little while since I've done this, 44, till you have 44 stitches, and then keep on knitting until it measures 6.5 inches, and then I will show you how to shape the armholes, but I'll show you how to do the increasing, sorry, first. It's just knit 1 stitch, pick that stitch up. It's a little bar there between the 2 stitches. Pick it up, put it on your needle. You know, that way, because you go and knit. And as you're knitting that stitch, make sure that the long part of the stitch is at the front, and you knit into the back of it, and that's your extra stitch you've made. And then just knit across the row to your last stitch. We're now at the last stitch, and you're going to pick that bar up to make a stitch and put it on the needle that way, with the long part of the stitch at the front, and knit into the back of it. And that's how you increase. And that's how you will do that until you have 44 stitches and it measures 6.5 inches. So I have knitted till this measures 6.5 inches, and I'm now going to decrease for the armholes. And as this is a crossing cable row, I've got my cable needle as well. So we're going to cast off 3 stitches at each beginning of each of the next 2 rows. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to knit until we come to the cable panel. And I'm going to take the first 2 stitches onto the cable needle and knit the next 2 stitches. And then knit the 2 stitches off the cable needle. The second row, we're going to cast off 3 stitches purlways. That's 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to follow the knit and purl stitches across this row. Well, that was knit 4, purl 4. So that's those 3 stitches cast off each end, and now we're going to knit 2 rows without doing any decreasing. So we're going to knit the first 2 stitches, and this is a knit row anyway, so we're going to knit all the way across this row. And we are making sure you knit the last 2 stitches as well. And on the 4th row we are going to knit 1, purl one, and then do whatever stitches we have to do on the wrong side row. So knitting where you have to knit and purl where you have to purl. I'm going to do that till we get to the last 2 stitches. And now the last 2 stitches are purl one, knit one. The next row is the 5th row, sorry, we've done 4 rows. And we're going to decrease on this row, so we're going to knit one, slip one, knit the next stitch, and then pass that slip stitch over. And as this is a knit row, just knit all the way across to the last 3 stitches. And now we're going to knit 2 together, knit one, and now we're going to knit another 3 rows, and we'll be decreasing as before and doing the stitches on the wrong side where you purl one, where you knit one, purl one, and then purl one, knit one at the end. And after you've done those, that next 4th row decrease is going to be on alternate rows until you have 6 stitches left, and I will come back then. We now have 6 stitches left, and I've cut the yarn off and left a long piece for sewing, and I'm going to put these stitches onto a pin. I finished on the, instead of knitting that row across there, when you pick the stitches up to do the neck, you knit across those stitches anyway, so I finish on the row that I actually decrease on. So that is the sleeve finished. Right, now I'm picking up stitches for the bands, and this is something I can do before I sew it up. I don't need to sew it up. There's be a collar to put on afterwards, which I will do before I sew things up. I prefer to do all the pieces that has to be done before I do the sewing up. So this side here, I picked up 60 stitches from one end to the other, and I done 5 rows in knit 2, purl 2, rib, and then I cast off loosely. But this is the side I'm picking the other side up. This is going to have the buttonholes in, and how I'm picking up the stitches, it doesn't have to be precise. That's just how many I've picked up on there. That's 60 stitches. You could be a couple less or a couple more. It doesn't have to be exact, but whatever you pick up on one side, you pick up the seam on the other side, or you're going to have it a bit lopsided. So with this pattern here, there's a few more rows to the inch. Normally it's with 4-ply and that. I think this is quite a lot finer than 4-ply, than double knitting, I mean. I think this is a lot finer than what I normally have with double knitting. But because there's more rows to the inch, I'm picking up different. I usually pick up 3 stitches and miss every 4th stitch. But with this one, I'm picking up 2 stitches and missing the 3rd one, because there's more rows in this. With it being garter and the cable, it pulls it in and up a little bit. So I don't know whether I'm going to miss a one or not, so I'm just going to knit into that one. So this one here, you go through the whole stitch, you can see the 2 pieces of the stitch, the V part. So I'm picking up 1 and then going into this is the little knotted bit on the end. That's a stitch as well. So you go into that one, that's 2. And I'm going to miss the 3rd one. So I'll go into that one again. 1, 2, Oops, missed that one. 2, miss the next one, go into that one. It's 1, 2, miss the next one, go into that one. 1, 2, and that's how you pick the stitches up. You go 1, 2, miss that one, go into the next one. 1, 2, and I'll carry on until I have 60 stitches, picking up all the rest of the stitches. So I have picked up the stitches, and I am 3 stitches short because I counted them up. There's only 57. So the next row I'm going to do is just knit, which gives you this garter edge down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase 3 stitches across that row. That'll make up the 3 stitches that I'm short. So I'm going to knit, and I'll just pick 3 spots across the row where I'm going to do that increase. I could have pulled it out and done it again, but it's a lot of work to do all that again. So like I said, I'm just going to increase, and I'll show you when I come to. So I'm going to increase a stitch here and it's just the same as any other, increasing it into the front of the stitch and into the back of the stitch. And I'll knit a few more. 1, 2, 3, and then if you look, because of the way it's increased, you can't see the increase on the other side. So I'm going to do that twice more across the row. I'll pick another couple of spots to do it. With this pattern, with it being knit 2, purl 2, you want an even number, so you don't end with a knit 1 or a purl 1. That's why I increased the stitches to make the number, to make it up to 60. So I'll do one more increase here. And I'll knit to the end of this row. And that's just a little tip for anyone who happens to pick up the stitches and on short on one side of what you've picked up on the other side. That's the easiest and best thing to do. And if you look along there, it's not noticeable where you've made those extra stitches. And now I want the knit 2, purl 2 to match. Now I started up the top of here with purl 2, so I'm going to start here with purl 2 so that I end up the same down the bottom with knit 2. So as you can see, I started with purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and come down to the bottom, it ended up with knit 2. So that's what I'm going to do here for this. So I'm just going to start with purl 2 and knit 2. And purl 2, knit 2. And I'm doing 5 rows all together, but I'll be putting the buttonholes on the 3rd row. So when I come to the 3rd row, I will show you how to do the buttonholes. Right, so I have knit 2 rows and I've put the stitch markers where I'm going to place the buttonholes. And I count up from, I've placed one there and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the 7th lot of 2 stitches. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. And with the two top ones, I had to put them a little bit closer because of the number of stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And where the stitch marker is, that's where I'm going to knit 2 stitches together. So I'm going to purl the first 2 stitches. Knit the next 2 stitches together. Wrap the wool around the needle because the next stitches are purl. So wrap the wool around the needle and purl 1, 2. It depends where you place the stitch markers, what stitch you're going to do. You want to knit 2 together. Wrap the wool around the needle and purl 2. I'm going to knit 2 stitches together again. Wrap the wool around the needle, purl 2. So that's the buttonholes made. And I'm going to knit another 2 rows and then cast it off very loosely. So that is the stitches for the band picked up, and as you can see, they match the... So it's easy to, know where to put the buttons on. You don't really need to pin them because you just put the button in the same place. With that one there, that one there, that one there, that one there, and that one there. So that's how it makes it easy. So you know exactly where to put the buttons. But now I'm going to pick up the stitches for the neck. This is going to be have a collar on this one. So for this one here, I'm going to pick up 14 stitches, starting halfway across the band. I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, missed that one, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and the top one 14. So picked up 14 stitches, and then we're going to pick up all the stitches off the the sleeves, the back and the other front. So the other front will have 14 stitches too. And you're going to pick up 6 off the sleeves and not sure is it or the back. The 18 stitches off the back. So I'm picking 6 up off this sleeve. Now that wool is wrapped around the, have to get around the right way to get it off the, and that's 6 off the sleeve, and then we're going to pick 18 up off the back. That's 18. Then we're going to take 6 off the other sleeve. That's 6 off the second sleeve. And then there's going to be 14 from the other front, the left front. It's 1, 2, 13, 14, and we've stopped halfway across the band there. And the next row we are going to knit, but we're going to increase stitches across this row. So we're going to knit 2, increase in the next stitch, knit in the front and the back of the stitch, then knit 3, increase in the 4th stitch. So we're going to knit 3 and increase in every 4th stitch. And we are knitting the last stitch, and now you should have around, I'm not sure how many, but I'll be counting anyway. So you should have around 78 stitches. Doesn't have to be exact, but that's around about what you need. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 72. Well, I only have 72 here, so that would do. So it doesn't have to be exact what the pattern says, it's just whatever number of stitches you can pick up. So now I'm going to knit until it measures, see what, 2 1/4 inches. I'm going to knit 2, purl 2 for 2 1/4 inches, and then I will be back when I get that far. I just checked my pattern again, and I should have picked up 16 stitches on the left front and the right front. So I'm 4 stitches short. That's how I don't have as many as I should have on. but it won't make, a couple of stitches won't make any difference. After you've knit a couple of rows, just pull the stitches, the bits of wool where you're going to do the seam, just pull them tight. And that takes up the slack on the so that's one row I've done of knit 2, purl 2, rib. So I'm going to carry on to measures 2 1/4 inches. Well, the light must be right today. It's actually showing this cardigan in a truer colour. This is probably what it actually looks like. But the collar is finished. I've knit until it measured 2 1/4 inches, and then I cast off in the knit 2, purl 2 rib. As you can see, it goes, you know, zigzag. You don't want to cast off all knit stitches because it spoils the effect of the rib. So now all I have to do now is sew it up and put the buttons on. So I will show you how I do the sewing. If I can get rid of some of these ends. All these ends are actually a pain while I'm knitting them, but I do like this for to sew them up afterwards. So I'm going to pin this piece here. And now I need my needle for sewing. Which one am I going to use? I like a shorter one. I have a shorter one somewhere. I'm not sure which is the it's that one there. Now when I sew the seams, I flat stitch them. And the reason I like to sew up afterwards, as you can see, there's a big hole here. This is what happens. Even if you've stitched up the seams, you still end up with holes. But if you leave your sewn till afterwards, you can work over those. So I make it a bit larger. So get rid of that hole there, I go under that stitch there and pull it out further up. And then go across to the other side. And as you can see, that's closed up that hole now. And then I'm going to flat stitch. The flat stitch, you just hold your 2 pieces together and just go from side to side. This pattern is very easy to see because you get where the knit stitches on the end, you get those little bumps, and that's where I tend to like to use as a guide for the sewing. Take that first pin out. So that's all you do to flat stitch, is hold those 2 pieces together side by side It's not a very sharp needle, this. I don't know whether I can do something with it to sharpen these needles, because they don't go through the wool as good as they used to. So that is how you do the flat stitch the seams, and as you can see when you turn it over, it's a nice neat seam. So I'm going to do all the rest of the seams like that, and then I will come back and show you how to do the side seams. And now we are going to flat stitch the ribbed part and back stitch the sides. So I've left one seam here to show you what you have to do. So you just go from one side of the just like you did with the raglans, one side to the other. So that's flat stitching the rib part, and now we're going to back stitch the sides. Put a pin in there to keep it going, and back stitch is just going into the back of the stitch, into the stitch that you just made. So you just made that stitch, it's come out there, so we're going into the back of it and coming out in front of it, a little way in front. You see the stitch there, and we're coming out a way in front, and then going back and coming out in front. Going in the back, coming out in front, going into the back and coming out in front. And that is how you back stitch behind and in front. And we're going to sew that all the way up to the armhole. And now to finish off, we are going to go onto the stitch behind and just go into that stitch, leave a little loop up there, put the needle through, pull it tight, further down again, go through the loop, pull it tight, and do that a third time. And that's how you finish off the sewing. And now we just need to turn it the right way. And find some buttons to put on now. And now just to put the buttons on the corresponding parts of the rib. As you can see, you just need to put those pieces of rib together, and you can see exactly where that one there goes into that one there goes into that one goes into that one. So I just need to put a pin where each of those spaces will be. So that is the finished cardigan, 18-inch, suit 3 to 6 months. So if you would like to see more anytime, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you all another time. So bye for now.